So at this point, the car could go ahead and it's ready to be animated. So let's go ahead and lock out some of the controls so that we can't get access to them, or animators can't get access to them. And we can leave it at that point, and then we can go ahead and do some extra controls on top of it. So let's concentrate on getting those locked out. So let's take a look at our hierarchy first and foremost. So I'm just going to bring my schematic view up. And I've got my 2 points that are just floating around, which I don't really need right now, so let's just remove them. So those are just deleted out. You can see I've got one long hierarchy and another one that's just floating here. So let's take a look. So this is the vehicle route, and if I just minimize this, that vehicle route should be right in the middle, which it is. And that should be world space 000, which we can see down here. So X, Y, and Z is 000, or you can just turn on the grid if you want to see that as well. And this doesn't do anything right now, so what I'm going to do quickly is just grab my vehicle car route control, and if I bring back my schematic view, you can see that out of the big long hierarchy, that's the top. And what I'm going to do is just quickly use my select and link tool and link that to the route. Okay, so the advantage of doing that is if I bring back my schematic view, I literally have one big line of hierarchy. So if we had multiple cars, you would know that each single hierarchy is a different car, which makes life really easy if you're trying to animate 20 different cars in the same scene. Also, if you've got characters and stuff as well, they might have some weird hierarchies, and you don't really want to get confused when you're trying to look through this view, or at least I don't like to. So that's one of the the main important things for it. It also means that we can add some offset animation when we come to it later. So we'll do that on the we'll go into using a path constraint to drive the rotation of the wheels in a moment. But for now, just parent that in and just remember that this is going to give us some extra control. So let's move down the hierarchy. So we've got this the route controller, and let's see what we can do with this. So we should be able to move the full car along. We should be able to rotate it, and technically we should be able to scale it, even though we shouldn't really scale things generally. But you can see that we can scale this car up and down, and we can grab some of the controllers and they still work fine, which is really good. And that's because we have it in the hierarchy in sort of a more correct hierarchy, if that makes sense. So should you have scaling joints and stuff for a character, you might not be able to actually scale this route control, but because we're just using the hierarchy and parenting things together, we can, which is really cool. So with that done, we want to leave open the position, rotation, and scale. So this guy's pretty much finished. What I'm going to do is, on my modifier list, I'm just going to add in an attribute holder, and that's just going to give no options in here. So if you're an animator and you come in and click this, there's nothing in here for you to play with. So hey, I can do whatever I can in the viewport, but there's nothing extra for me down here. Whereas if I left the rectangle open, some people might come in and start playing with the sizes of this and things like that, and I really don't want that to happen. Or it can happen, but I'd prefer it if it didn't. So I've just added an attribute holder on that. So let's move up to the top of the car, and we've got, remember we did this a while back now, but the roll. So let's just see if that still works. That looks really fine. That's perfect for what we need. It's not really penetrating the geometry too much. The wheel goes in there and it sits nicely inside of the arch, which is cool. And I should be able to hold down Alt, right click, and go to transform to 0, and that jumps right back. However, it's the controller on the outside, this this bounding box, we shouldn't really be able to grab it right now. So let's just click on it. Let's right click, let's go to object properties, and I'm gonna turn off show frozen and gray. So just make sure that's ticked off, and I'm just gonna OK that. And you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna right click, and I'm gonna freeze transformations in just a second. Sorry, I'm gonna freeze this object in just a second. But before I do that, let's just come across to the motion hierarchy panel. I always get that one wrong. I always go to the motion one. So let's go to the link info, and I'm just gonna lock all of these. So the XYZ for move, XYZ for rotate, and XYZ for scale, and leave the rest as is. And this is going to stop the user from actually moving this if they do unfreeze everything. But one thing we can do is just right click and let's freeze that selection. And now in the viewport we're not actually able to click on that, which is, you know, exactly what we need. But even if someone does come in and unfreeze the selection, they're not going to be able to move it, which is cool. They're at least going to have to go in here, and they're going to really want to have to move this to actually, you know, undo all of the locks that we've done. So let's have a look at this guy that we've got. We've already got some limit controllers on it anyway, just so that we can do this, and we can't move it up in the Z-axis. But right now we can still rotate it, and we can still scale it, which is definitely not what we want. So let's lock some stuff out. We don't want the Z-axis, we don't want any of that. So let's just lock this on the move, and let's take a look if we can still move everywhere, which we can. And we can't move up, it's fine. And the rotate and the scale we want locked as well. Perfect. So I shouldn't be able to rotate that now or scale it. So you can see nothing happens when I'm trying to affect this. Let's move down to the drift control. Same thing, we actually just want a rotation in the Z. Let's just check that. I'm just going to go to gimbal just to make sure. Yep, so we want a rotation in the Z and nothing else. So let's lock everything except that Z rotation. So you can still do that, but I'm not actually able to do anything else. And same for the steering, that just needs to be in the Z-axis as well. So let's start locking this out. Alright, with that done, let's take a look at the wheels. So we've got the axles that we want to be able to move. We want to be able to move that around. Want to be able to rotate it in any way that we need as well. But we really don't want to be able to scale this out. As you can see, that looks a bit crazy. So let's just lock the scaling, and we'll do the same for the front. Just XYZ. Right, so for the controls along the bottom, we don't want to be able to scale it. We want to be able to move it. Definitely up and down at least. You can give your animators a choice, you know, if they want to be able to move this wheel out. It's entirely up to you at this point. I'm going to let, because I'm going to be animating this, I'm going to let myself be able to move this off. I know the consequences of moving the front ones and not having the same pivot position for the steering. Do you want to give rotation? Well, I definitely do. I want to leave that open just in case we have to fake anything, but I definitely want to lock out the scale. So let's just lock the scale for all of these. Let's just run around all of these controllers on the car and do it. And of course we can write a script to do this for us, which would be a lot quicker and easier, but for the purposes of this, it's easier just to go in and do this right now. This rotation controller, well, actually we just want it to be able to rotate in the Z again, so let's lock everything else out except that rotation. Perfect. And the other side, just leaving that Z rotation available. This is a lot of clicking. It's alright, it's not difficult, it's just there's a lot of it. Alright, cool. So we have those locked out. And the last thing that we haven't touched on yet is just getting these tires to squash down and, you know, instead of going all the way through the floor and things like that, being able to squish down those tires just a little bit to show a little bit of extra weight. So what I'm going to do for this one is let's go in and do some limit controllers, and then we'll come back to the locks. And we'll do that in the next video.